Good evening, everyone. Welcome to VRC for another round of the Sunday GT Masters. My name is Hasse Rømer. I'm here with Jack Werrell for another exciting round of racing here from Watkins, Glen. Of course, brought to you by Grip Engineering and SIMRACER Coin, indeed. And another leg here of the another part of the final leg of the journey, I should say. That is this season, Jack. It's coming to the round off here. We're at Watkins Glen, 3 more rounds to go, and I think we're in for a great one here indeed.
Yeah, hello Hasse, hello everybody. It's great to be back in the box after a week out. And yeah, round 8, where has the season gone? The season is very quickly coming to a close, but we've still got plenty of racing still to go. And I've got to say, Watkins Glen is one of those circuits on the calendar that I don't think gets as much attention as I think it deserves. Of course, it gets the really big events, like it gets the IMSA Sports Car Championship, both the NASCAR Cup and Xfinity Series. It used to hold Formula One, the United States Grand Prix, between sort of 1961 and 1980, and it holds a raft of events throughout its sort of 1 year lifespan from season to season. So it's one of those circuits which gets lots of recognition in the real racing world, but I think in the sim it doesn't get quite as much as it deserves. But at the moment it looks like everyone's slowly getting to grips with the cars. Still sometimes to be set, some drivers that haven't set times, some drivers that have set times but might not be quite as representative as we'd expect. So once again, as we're getting close to the end of the season, as is the usual pattern with most sim racing series, the championship will only get closer.
Yeah, indeed, and with an open round here in terms of setup here, as well as the competition itself. It's going to be interesting to see if the Lamborghinis are going to be back on top. So it would seem at least here in practice, as Matthew Forrest maybe hears me telling about the pace they're putting in and decides to have a bit of a moment immediately here. Gaston Maceroni with that lap of his, the 1:43.73. By the way, exactly the same lap as Matthew Forrest. That's down to the 4th digit behind the comma. That's close indeed. Jack, I am indeed just gonna have a look at the championship standings. I don't think we have it in the sim for this round, but regardless, we're just gonna go through it. Maybe a bit of a scenic cam here for a moment to just while I talk, maybe not to have too much of the engine notes in the background, but it is due close indeed. In Pro, Chris Boland leads, but by 8 points only, down to Nicolas Cucato. Remco Barlow still there in third. He's got 130 points. That, by the way, is 19 points less than Chris Boland, who has 149 points to his name. Gaston Mazzaroni very, very close as well. In 4th, and Matt Forrest in 5th. Close, these two drivers within 5 points of 3rd place. And actually, to be completely frank with you, so it's the case for Martin de Jong, who's just a point behind Matthew Forrest. So it's really all to play for at the top end of the standings in Pro. And very much so the same thing in AM, because Giambattista Giachetti and Cody Steek are tied on points with 146, and just 11 points behind Craig Thompson with 135. And Orkun Kolak still could get something at the very top of the AM standings this season. He's 4th with 129 points. And 5th, it's Matt Sisseler with 112, tied with Chris Pio at the moment, but a little too far back. I would expect it to be any lasting impact here over the final few rounds of the season. With that said, Jack, we're just a few seconds away from the beginning of qualifying here.
Yeah, so already the practice session, I say already, some of the drivers have been out for the full hour. You can see there's, if you do have live timing at home, you'll be able to see how many laps have been completed. And just a quick glance over, Host Skulj, 24 laps completed, Matthew Forrest 22. So some of these guys are really putting the laps in the race conditions before qualifying, which is now upon us. So qualifying very shortly getting underway. Of course, qualifying is one of those sessions where it will either work for you or against you. It also depends on teammates as well. We do have the Teams Championship to worry about. Not so much that there's not really that many drivers that focus on the Teams Championship. Of course, if they can assist their team on their way to the championship, absolutely they will do so. And I think a lot of teams do work together during qualifying. Virtua Racing being one of them. You always see the two Audis locked nose to tail of Gaston Maceroni and Nicholas Cacato in the Virtua Racing Audi R8s. They sit on each other's bumpers, help each other around, get some draft assistance, and then swap roles just a lap later to see what they can do. And it's great to see that. Obviously, they do that because they are taking the championship seriously, but off the circuit and in towards the paddock and just having general chats with the drivers throughout the week, they say it's just a bit of fun. So you can see they take it seriously on the night, but outside of the race, they just generally all nice people, and it's a great paddock to be around.
Yeah, definitely, and it's an art form as well, Jack. I think, to be honest, with the teamwork in qualifying, because being the driver in front, you're gonna have to know when to get out of the way and when you can sort of push with the driver behind, trying to gain as much as possible from being in that slipstream. And I think it's something that a lot of the teams that sort of put this into practice in qualifying will be having put a lot of practice, no pun intended, into it in general, because it's like a dance. It takes two to tango, doesn't it? And it's great to see when we see it pulled off here.
Yeah, it's a real mixed bag as well. Of course, one thing I do like to mention is, of course, the iRacing balance of performance. It's taken in theory from the real world. Obviously, in real life, you do get the balance of performance generally on all of the cars. And when a championship releases a new car, they tend to release a balance of performance for that. That's usually mandated by SRO, in theory, the owners of the GT3 specification of car. So it's interesting to see how that affects the drivers. I do have a list somewhere along here of how the BOP affects the drivers, but it seems like the rear engine or the rear wheel drive V10 cars, of course there are no sort of four-wheel drive GT3s, but the V10 cars are the ones that really have benefited from the BOP this season. So the Audis and the Lamborghinis seem to just have the edge, but then it comes down to driving style as well.
Yeah, and we've seen in the rounds with open setups, the Lamborghinis seem to have had an edge over most of the rest of the field. The Audi's very, very competitive as well. But it's been another story on the fixed setups, though. So the rounds we've had on the fixed setup. Certainly a lot of the Lamborghini drivers have had a hard time really getting to terms with just the twitchy nature and the way that it does like to rotate, I think, Jack, but it also comes with a price of the rear sometimes being a little too fond of overtaking the front end of the car here as Gaston Maceroni comes around for what I think gonna be his first flying lap. We got the first laps coming in and qualifying here. Nick Mclaughlin already setting times that are as good or better than the best times we saw in practice today. 1:43.26 for Mclaughlin, Matthew Forrest second, and then Nuno Vinagre. Gaston Maceroni there goes second provisionally with a 1:43.586. We'll have a lot of drivers coming across the line to post their initial lap times, as well as start their flying laps for the slow starters here. What about this man here, Jack? Osman Sert. He's been very, very quick indeed. And he's across the line.
Yeah, so on to another lap now. He's one of those drivers that strikes me as like he's got the potential to just absolutely fly. Of course, we saw him come in at Red Bull Ring, and on his debut, you couldn't have done much more than he did. He just took off, took the field by storm, and really made his mark on the championship really early on. And it's nice to see that you can still do that. You don't have to get in and work your way up through the class until you're at that point where you can compete with the top guys. Of course, that progression is great, and we don't get me wrong, we do still see that. But it's nice to see a real range of drivers coming in of all different talents and skill levels and experiences, and that it really is what the Sunday GT Masters is about. And of course, having the sponsors on board that we do, it really makes it a nice, welcoming place to be. And like I say, the paddock is such a friendly place, and it is ever growing as well. There's still room on the grid, so if you are watching along and you do fancy getting involved and competing in the series next season, I'm sure there will be a season 4 now. Please do feel free to get in touch, and I'm sure either myself or Hasse will be able to point you in the right direction, or go straight to Virtual Racing Compound or the Sunday GT Masters themselves. And the sponsors, we quickly mentioned them there, Grip Engineering and SIMRACER. We all mentioned them throughout the night. Grip Engineering, they do sort of sim racing coaching, bringing in sort of real life experience as well, and 20% discount on your first session, your introductory session, so you really can't go wrong there. And SIMRACER coin, aiming to be one of the first and leading sim racing crypto coins. We will get into them a little bit later on, but we're almost halfway through the qualifying session already, Hasse, and at the moment Mclaughlin at the top end of affairs, and rather comfortable at that. Never mind.
As we say, that is a blindingly quick lap there from Osman Sert. A 10th and a half up on Nick Mclaughlin's previous pole time. Quickly back to the pits and out for another run indeed. Just alongside Gaston Maceroni, who still sits third here. Matthew Forrest is fourth ahead of Cucato. And Pete Plastow and Sasso Prosen here in his Lamborghini for Apex Tech Racing. As he's coming up through the S's, up the hill and on to the back straight. I'll take this opportunity, Jack, to have a look at the lap here at the Glen. Indeed, it's a good old kicking here, the boot, and long back straight here. Oh, that's contact in the chicane. That's gonna wreck this lap, I'm afraid, and he calls it off immediately here, Sasso Prosen. So not the best of onboard laps, to be honest, but we'll see if we can find a better chance and a driver that maybe will keep it a bit cleaner here. The way Jack Orkan Kolak in the 666 Lamborghini, 9th overall at the moment, leader of AM, but with Matt Sissela right behind. That'll be an interesting one if they start like this. Just as I say that, they have indeed been split here by Jorge Pinheiro.
Yeah, so Jorge Pinheiro working his way up through turns 2 and 3 now. Over the crest he will go. Has Chris Pio in one of the Fords just up the road. Not too far adrift down the back straight. They both go. And it's a very easy mistake to make, turning into that inside armco barrier, because you want to cut as much of the chicane as possible. You can get away with a little bit of grass. You can almost get away with all 4 wheels off the ground, because as soon as you land, you really compress the suspension, find some very early grip, lose it very quickly, but then gain it again. And sometimes that settling and unsettling of the car helps the nose almost bounce in towards the exit. So there's so many differing lines. You can't leave it too late, because then you hit the grass and you're on a one-way train, either into another car or into the wall, or potentially gathering the moment up. And you obviously can't turn in too early because the armco's there. So it's a fine gap you've got to try and find, and it closes very quickly, especially when you're in a group of cars or you're pushing to the absolute limit to try and find that time. So an easy mistake to make, and we will see a couple more drivers make it this evening, I'm sure. But Sasso Prosen getting caught out, being one of the first. Still Jorge Pinheiro continuing on towards the latter stages of the lap. Osman Sert now heading through the carousel. Long right-hander, kills that outside front tyre. And thankfully, they don't really have to use it too much until they get back round to another long right-hander. The one Gaston Maceroni is going through at the moment. So up the hill he will go, using all of the track and a little bit more. You can see a couple of drivers using the grass on the exit as well. It's quite easy to get caught out off camber on the exit. But Gaston Maceroni behind the wheel of this beautiful Audi R8 LMS, powered by a very good sounding V10 engine, naturally aspirated 5.2 litre engine, up to 585 brake horsepower and over 550 newton meters of torque. So very well balanced car, very quick off the line, but also has got plenty of straight line speed. But with it being pretty much rear engine, it is mid-engine, but it seems like a lot of the weight is over that rear axle. You see what can happen to the handling there. Gaston Maceroni, many sort of minute changes mid-corner just to keep that tail end in check, Hasse.
Yeah, and it's also the nature of the track, I think, because the drivers and teams are going to want to go for a setup that enables them to basically go as quickly as they can on the straights, while still maintaining the maximum amount of at least mechanical grip. So you do have a number of slower corners here at Watkins Glen. The chicane, though, as you mentioned before, very challenging indeed in any type of car, just controlling the movement of the car over the bumps here. As you can see, Maceroni's got some damage there as well. He might have done what I think it was Cesar Prosigna who did it before, and I think Maceroni's done exactly the same thing as Matthew Forrest. Goes on a quick lap here, and Osman Sert 1:42.97. He's on an out lap at the moment. Still have just under 4 minutes to go here in qualifying, so still time.
Yep, so the qualifying session still just ticking away. Not too long left at the moment, of course, just over 3 minutes of the session remaining, and that's all a few of these drivers need at the moment. Still Osman Sert on provisional pole position, a 1:42.97 for himself. Then it's Nick Mclaughlin, a 1:43.26, some 16 thousandths of a second away. 17 thousandths of a second away from Nick is Gaston Maceroni, the man we're looking at the moment. Another 17 thousandths of a second away. We get back to Matthew Forrest, who we were just looking at, and it seems to be everybody's fairly equidistantly spread throughout the pro class at the moment. Pete Plasto not too far adrift, only 0.05 of a second away from the car in front of Nicholas Cacato. But at the moment, Osman Sert heading out onto what would be another flying lap, and returning to the pit lane, Nick Mclaughlin. And looking at the time remaining, Hasse, he can leave the pit lane, but he has to leave now if he wants that extra lap. Yeah,
he has to make it quick if it's to be another attempt. He didn't quite better Osman Sert there, though he was very close. And for what we have him in here in the timing software, it seems they've done sort of identical laps. They're not going to be identical to the third digit, I'm quite certain. But interesting indeed here, Osman Sert. Does he go too wide there? I'm not quite sure, but he might have lost a little bit of speed. Looked like the best of exit there from turn 1 up through the S's. And always, Jack, when we're here at Watkins Glen, it's a bit of a gamble here, lap 1. We've got a field of, 23 cars tonight lining up. So, and Osman Sert makes a mess of the chicane as well. And there will be no more attempts from him. Nick Mclaughlin will be trying to line it up here. He's got 1 minute and 15 seconds to reach the line and get that move on.
Yeah, big improvement from Sander Kaffer, Hasse.
Oh yeah, well, impressive pace. Sander Kaffer in the 523 Ferrari, going, I think, at least higher than we've seen any AM driver go this season, and putting in a superb lap time here, close to the very end of the session as well. 5th overall, and a long way ahead of Orkun Kolak. I was very close indeed. Might have picked him up a 1x on the outside there. I'm actually quite certain the track limits are relatively lenient here in regards of these tarmac runoff areas where the track splits up.
only person that can really bring it to Osman Sert will either be Nick Mclaughlin or Gaston Maceroni. Gaston Maceroni made it to the line, so he will be able to do another lap. Look how planted the Ferrari is through the chicane, bouncing over the curbs, but immediately slams back down and balanced again, hugging that inside curb. Big improvement from Remco Barlow, now up into 8th place overall, 7th place in class, a 1 minute 44.07, incredibly close to Nicholas Cacato, the man you were just looking at there, but Nick Mclaughlin already heading in towards the final sector, up through the long right-hander. Be careful not to wash wide on the exit. You can jump on the throttle too early and then grab the grass. Nick Mclaughlin doesn't do that, uses that extra bit of tarmac he can, and then again up through the gearbox before heading over the crest, hard on the brakes, flicking the car in. We can hear the 4-litre twin-turbo V8 just behind Nick, and that was very wide. I'd be careful there. I'm not sure whether he's managed to get away with it. Like you say, the off-tracks and the track limits around here tend to be fairly lenient. I'm not sure whether they will be that lenient, but we will see. He's still on a push lap through the long left-hander, manages to make that work, then through the 90 right, down a gear potentially. No, keeps it in 4th, uses the torque on the exit. All 700 newton meters of torque produced by this Ferrari. Towards the line he will go. Will we see an improvement, and will we see a positional improvement? Yes, we do. A 142.945 is now the new pole time, 300ths of a second quicker than Osman Sert.
He's found the perfect time to put in a near perfect lap there to just about pip Osman Sert at the final second. It's a bit extra here. Cody Steek, will it be an improvement for him? He's 7th in class at the moment. He does improve, and he goes up to 4th, I think, there, Jack, which is not bad at all. And with that said, it is time for you, my friend, to go through the grid order indeed.
Thank you very much. Nick Mclaughlin will start on pole position after that brilliant qualifying lap right towards the end of the session, 1 minute 42.945. Only a quarter of a tenth quicker than Osman Sert. Then we get back to Gaston Maceroni and Matthew Forrest. Row 3 is made up of our AM pole sitter, Sander Caffert, followed by Ho Skulj. Then it's Nicholas Cacato, Remco Barlow, Pete Plasto, and Sasso Prosen rounds out your first 10 starters. Row 6 of the grid is Nuno Vinagre and Jorge Pinheiro, and SL Technic lockout for 11th and 12th. Then we get back to Orkon Kolak and Giambattista Giacetti, and Cody Steig, Matt Sisler, Ida Kane, Atterberg, Stephen Orrell, Craig Thompson, and Chris Roberts right the way down in 20th place, followed by the final 3 of Matthew Maddox, Chris Pio, and Martin de Jong, not setting a lap time behind the wheel of the second Ford. It's always interesting to keep an eye on the Ford GTs we've got out on circuit. 550 brake horsepower in those cars through a 5-litre naturally aspirated. I believe they did do a turbo version, but I think the one in iRacing is the naturally aspirated V8. A very, very good sounding car. You can hear a couple of cars revving away in the background, but Nick Mclaughlin has it right towards the end of the session. Not much time left at all, and he really pulled it out the bag.
It was brilliant to see indeed. And we don't see it that often here in the series, with the driver getting that perfect lap in under all that pressure at the end of the session. But sometimes as well, Jack, you just know where you can improve. And if you just put together a decent lap and then get that 1 or 2 corners right, or that exit you didn't nail on the previous lap, you know you've got it in here. We've got one of the long formation laps here at the Glen. I don't know if it's one of the tracks that hasn't yet received one of the...
Jumpstart Stephen. Jumpstart Stephen.
Stephen Orrell, I think, sounded like he got a jump start, which is, I don't know if it's even a thing, or if it's some kind of inside joke. I will have muted the comms that I raised earlier myself, so, yeah, and if you'd like to know, I was, smashed into the wall on the 3rd lap of an IMSA endurance race at Le Mans, so didn't last all that long in the end. But that's how it goes. I think we've all tried it, haven't we, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely. We've all done it, but fingers crossed we don't see any of that in round 8 of the Sunday GT Masters, powered by, of course, Grip Engineering and SIMRACER Coin. Nick Mclaughlin, the man on the mission at the moment. He is controlling the pace. As soon as the safety car peels off to the right-hand side towards the final couple of corners, Nick Mclaughlin is in charge of the field. He controls the pace, controls when they go from safety car into green lights. At any point in that time, Nick Mclaughlin can go. You can see a lot of drivers opting just to cut that chicane, make sure that they can work their way through without any sort of incident. But all in very neat 2x2 order, not much weaving around. I'd imagine a little bit of brake dragging just to get the brakes and the tyres up to temperature. The heat tends to radiate through the brakes in towards the tyres. And I've got to say, Hasse, whilst 23 cars is a brilliant turnout, I think one of the smallest grids we've had all season.
Yeah, which is a good thing in itself. Maybe a few drivers a little bit withholding in terms of knowing that the early few laps here at the Glen, as we've mentioned already, does carry a few risks indeed. But that wouldn't be a reason all by itself. I know a lot of drivers have, or at least a few drivers have been present at the 24 hours of the Nürburgring this weekend, which is of course a very viable reason for not being present. The cars on your right-hand side of the screen and our right-hand side of the screen indeed just need to get a move on here. I think a lot of race organizers will want to see these formation laps nice and tidy. Of course, a bit of distance in between does often make for a safer run. We'll see just how it goes, Jack. The safety car is going to peel off into the pit lane here on the right-hand side, and it's going to be Nick Mclaughlin. I expect him to go relatively early. There's the safety car.
Yeah, back in the field up very, very close. And sorry, Hasse, there he goes very, very early compared to what I was expecting. I was expecting him to hold them right the way to the start line, but as soon as the lights went off, away he went. Osman looking to go all the way around the outside nice and early. Can't quite get the move done and then gets shut out. Nick Mclaughlin already has built up just a couple of car lengths. That's all he needs. But Gaston Maceroni sat there in third, trying to make that second place now.
Yeah, indeed. And say too much, Jack. So far, so good. As we get the field plowing onto the straight here. A bit of infighting. There will be a lot of that. Oh, and we've got an accident indeed. And that's Aiden Karnaterberg, I'm afraid. Who gets plummeled into the wall. We saw it happen. And for some reason, didn't quite want to play the replay there. I don't know what's up with the timing software there, but I think a lot of drivers would have feared this opening lap, and maybe that's why we haven't seen all that much racing yet here. I shouldn't say too much though, because Matt Sisseler and Stephen Orrell in the two Mercedes really going at it. And that's Matthew Maddox wanting to get involved as well in his Porsche. Up ahead, we'll have a look at the leaders though. It's Nick Mclaughlin from Osman Sert, Gaston Maceroni and Matthew Forrest as they were. Remco Barlow, Jack, got a beautiful start for him. He's up 3 positions up into 5th here.
Yeah, really good start from Remco Barlow. And it just means that with everything that went on behind, he could cut his way through the order. It seems like, I'm not sure whether that's timing screen messing around, but it seems like there's a few drivers well and truly out of position from where I expected them, but I think he's trying to keep them up with their class. Chris Roberts, I know he was starting right the way down in 20th place, but I think it's working off the class loss that I've been looking at. But yeah, so at the moment, biggest mover in the field is unfortunately a negative one. Hodskulj down 5 places, still out and circulating. After that, of course, we do have Aide Karnaterberg in towards the pit lane. But at the moment, I'm trying to pick out the drivers that are really moving and shaking and trying to get their way up through the order. Sandikaff are doing very well, still sat there 6th place overall, well and truly leading his class. Closest cars we've got out on the field or on circuit at the moment, I think, is Craig Thompson right the way down in 21st place, trying to work his way through and past Martin de Jong, pro class runner, which he does so now. So Martin de Jong is struggling with pace in that car. Of course, I think both Ford GTs starting towards the very tail of the field, but at the moment Craig Thompson has managed to work his way, like I say, through and past, and he's now trying to chase down Cody Steig up at the head of affairs. Nick Mclaughlin almost a second clear, Osman Sert almost a second clear thereafter of Gaston Maceroni. Then you get back to the very feared and sort of busy mid-pack. There's cars absolutely everywhere, packs forming within that mid-pack itself, but there's not too much breathing room throughout. There is Pete Blasto, of course, very quick driver indeed in that Ferrari. But at the moment he's trying to work his way forward, work his way past Sasso Prosen in the 75 Lamborghini, and then the Portuguese driver for SR Technic in the background was Jorge Pinheiro. I didn't quite pick out what happened there. I was looking at my timing screen, but in towards the barrier, I think. Did he keep it out the wall, Hasse?
Yeah, I think he did. We'll just have to see here whether it did or not. It's Gulch who went. Oh, I think he just about managed to.
Yeah, very well.
If he kept it out the wall or not, I'm not quite sure. I don't see any damage on the car, so if it was a tap, it was a very light tap indeed from Pinheiro. That was well kept, but he's lost a few positions. In the meanwhile, up ahead, it's still kicking off here into and someone's got it all wrong. That's Matthew Forrest. Matthew Forrest. Let's see what happened to him here. Oh, he just goes flying all on his own. Oh, the champion, the reigning champion, Jack. Kind of messed it up big time there in the chicane. And he will have a long night ahead of him from now. And another driver who's had a problem there. It's all kicking off here. We had a clean start, but now it's falling apart for a lot of drivers here, it seems. Nick Mclaughlin as well. What happened to him here?
Yeah, I'm guessing on the exit potentially he grabbed it. No, on the way in, it got lots of oversteer, and then it's a one-way train as soon as you're on that grass. It's so unfortunate, of course, you are on slick Pirelli tyres. There's not too much you can do.
It's crapping, isn't it?
Yeah, straight in towards the Armco barrier, and suspension damage on that car. Lots of aero damage. Doing the very polite, gentlemanly thing, making sure he stays off the off the race line.
No.
There has been an incident. Hote's caught up in that one. Keep an eye on that Apex Tech Porsche. That's the car I saw pointing backwards. So there's the very slow Nick Mclaughlin and wobbling on the way in, and he's just a passenger from there. Then gets picked up by the number 22 of Nuno Vinagre, and that's two very competitive Porsches caught up in a very unfortunate incident. No driver at fault. Nick Mclaughlin keeping us rather entertained, reversing down the pit lane.
Yeah, tells me he's probably not going to be continuing in this race because he's likely to be getting a penalty for doing that in the first place. I don't think you're allowed to reverse down the pit lane. Sasso Prosen here now on the tail of Nicolas Cucato, who's made some good gains here early in this race. And there is some weirdness going on with it though. Cucato's told us that he's gone down 4 positions. I can't really make any real sense because he didn't start on pole and he's in 5th place at the moment. He's gained a few positions to the best of my knowledge. Well, he does have Sasso Prosen and Pete Plaza behind at the moment. Let's see what this race has in the bag for us here tonight, Jack. It's turned out already to be one that seems to catch drivers out, and from out of nowhere as well. Very tight battling here though with Matthew Maddox, Stephen Orrell, and I think that Matt Sisseler just ahead of it here. You look at a thing like this, Jack, and you tend to think this is never gonna end well. Just as I said it, Chris Roberts, he's felt just that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think he lost it on the way in. There might have been a small amount of contact with the car in front of Matthew Maddox. I'm not sure quite how close they got. So you can see Chris Roberts there, and I think either a little bit of contact with Matthew Maddox or on the brakes whilst turning in, and then Matthew Maddox cutting across the nose of Chris Roberts, which he's more than entitled to do. Just then unsettled Chris's car, and that allowed him to over-rotate. Lots of damage on Martin de Jong's Ford GT, which is of course a shame to see. Not 100% sure what's going on. He's ripped off the front right-hand side, so through turn 1 he will go. Does he get a flick of oversteer? Bounces over the curbs and hard into the tyres. The tyres do grab that front right-hand piece of bodywork, tear it from the car. Back to the race at present. Sander Kaffer doing a brilliant job right the way up in 4th place. It wasn't just qualifying pace. He can maintain that very, very quick pace that he showed in the earlier session. And he's still sat there 4th overall, of course, first in class. Looking at Sasso Prosen, chasing down now Nicholas Kikato. He does have Pete Plasto all over his tail, only 2/10 separating the Lamborghini from the Ferrari. If they keep battling the way they are, Jorge Pinheiro in the SL Technic Lamborghini, number 82 machine, sat just behind as well. So at the moment, everybody's working their way slowly together towards the top end of the order. The dream at the moment for Sander Kaffer would be all of the cars behind just start battling away. But Cody Steig at the moment, we've had a couple of interviews with Cody Steig throughout the season. It'd be nice to potentially get another with him this evening if he can continue on carving his way through the order. Up 2 places overall at the moment. Matthew Maddox will be the next target. But everybody crossing the line to go on to what will be their 6th lap of the race.
Yeah, coming to the end of the first 10 minutes of racing here, it's been quite eventful, and it's been attritional as well, with the 4 drivers out of the race at the moment, and a few others I think that are borderline. I think it's closer to 6, to be honest. Matthew Forrest has just come into the pit lane as well. Wonder if he's had another problem. Chris Roberts here. And a problem. Was that something new? That's something else? Yeah, he goes flying. Oh, that's not a good look, is it? That's a massive incident as well for Chris Roberts. I'm afraid that might just be the end of his day here. And Jack, at this pace here, if they keep falling like that, there isn't really going to be any cars left at the end of 45 minutes here, is there?
No, we already said that whilst 23 cars is a fabulous turnout, it is somewhat down on the numbers we're used to seeing. And with drivers dropping like flies the way they are, we've only got 18 cars. In theory, 19 still out and running, because the cars that have been damaged and then repaired are returning to the circuit, which is of course great to see. They never sort of just check out of the session. Here is Matthew Maddox. Have we had an incident with him? Very, very sideways down in towards the little straight between Sector 1 and Sector 2. He's just being patient, waiting on his Delta to clear up. It does so now, and then he can continue on. Martin de Jong out of the race now. Matthew Forrest, Nick Mclaughlin and Chris Roberts, all the VRC drivers in the pit lane. They haven't left the session, they are watching along. Matthew Maddox, 17th place, the final of the runners that haven't been involved in some sort of major incident throughout the evening. Looking back now from Nicholas Kikato with the number 202, I should say, Audi R8 LMS for Virtua Racing. You can see Sasso Prosen up the hill, gaining. So too behind is Pete Plasto in the 312 Virtual Racing Compound Blue Ferrari. Down the back straight, we will go in towards the chicane in just a few moments' time. Wait for the nose of the car to dive, down a gear potentially on the way in, and then chuck the cars over the curb. You see them all bounce at a very similar time, everybody keeping them under control. The Audi probably the most skittish out of them all through there. The Lamborghini manages to make it work, and the Ferrari's just so planted, struggling with a little bit of mid-corner understeer, I think, a little bit from Pete Plasto, but down the hill we will plunge. Earlier on the brakes from Pete, I think he's allowing Sasso Prosen to apply that pressure onto Nicholas Kikato, and then he's just waiting for that mistake to come, because Pete Plasto, if he plays his cards right, he could work his way into the top 5 without having to do too much work.
Yeah, and we've seen so many times as well, Jack, that whoever can save the most fuel and in turn save that little bit of extra time on the forthcoming pit stop round, they will be in a very good place to jump their immediate opponents on track. Stephen Orrell fighting Craig Thompson. I think Thompson has the run on the outside there. Late on the brakes. And is that a sealed deal? I think it is for Craig Thompson to take 13th place from Stephen Orrell. It's Osman Sert, by the way, leading Gaston Maceroni, Remco Barlow, Nicolas Cocato, and Celso Prosen. That's in Pro, of course. And in AM, Sander Kaffa, 4th overall, Jack. Impressive. Ahead of Okun Korlak, Giambattista Giachetti, Matt Sisseler, and Cody Steeg. So, Giachetti there in the end, has to be said. He's in a good position as well when we're talking the AM Class Drivers' Championship here.
Yeah, he's doing everything he needs to do, is Sander Kaffa. He's showing he can mix it up with the pros, and of course towards Season 4, which I'm sure is the aim for both, not only the admins, but the drivers as well, working their way in towards Season 4. It's showing that the classes can be interchangeable. It means some of the drivers that maybe couldn't quite keep up with the pros will work their way back in towards the AM class, but towards the top of it, and those drivers like Sander Kaffa do have the pace and the potential to be moved up and bumped up towards the pro class. However, they did a brilliant job, this being the first season where the classes you're seeing at the moment have been applied to the championship, and they were done very, very well. All the drivers mixing it in perfectly, and I don't think there was really anybody out of position until now, as much as Sander Kaffa really working his way up through the order. There is Stephen Orrell in the 668 Mercedes for Easy Racing, having just lost out to Craig Thompson. Isn't willing to give up that position just as of yet. The VRC blue car just up the road, not too far adrift, but it seems like on the brakes that Ferrari has just got the edge. And of course the Mercedes, whether the balance of performance has slightly changed the tyres on that car, it seems like towards the start of the race it can be very, very quick, very competitive, and as soon as you get it hooked up it can work for you. A little flick of oversteer on the exit, but towards the end of the race, once the fuel comes out and the rear end of the car gets lighter, but the front end has still got all that weight over it, you can really, really struggle with understeer, especially on scrub tyres. That's definitely something to think about as we're a quarter of the way through the race now.
Yeah, and it's always been something that's a bit of an Achilles heel of the Mercedes, while a lot of the other cars tend to really hook up and get faster at the end of the stint there. Stephen Orrell finds the track limits indeed there in turn 1, a little bit wide, but manages to hook it up though. It's because it's a strong package otherwise, especially in terms of top speed mixed with a very stable machine here. It's going to be an attempt to gain back the place there on the Ferrari into the chicane. The camera angle not really doing us any favors in terms of seeing whether Stephen Orrell was gaining anything or not. Nicolas Cocato, Celso Prosen, I'm sorry, and Pete Plastow. And here. And just looking here, there's no Chris Boland on the grid tonight. So, regardless, it's going to be points gained. And at the moment, the real gainer seems to be Gaston Maceroni, and of course Nicolas Cocato as well. If so, it stands like this till the end of the race. We're just over a third of the way, Jack. And it's been an interesting race so far. Plastow now on the tail of Jorge Pinheiro. I wonder just what happened there. Let's see. We can get another look at that here. Pinheiro with a slight dive there on Plastow. Gets squeezed on the outside. Pete is not going to be too thrilled about that, is he? But Jorge Pinheiro gets the job done. I think it's just been reversed here by Plastow, so we've got another one to check out. Here it is. Pete Plastow down towards the chicane. He's got a good run up through the S's. Just that tad later on the brakes. Pinheiro doesn't fight it too hard, which is the clever thing to do, I think, in the end. And then Jotze Skulj has had a bit of an issue here. It might just have been a small off track, but on this track you learn to check it out. No, that's just a bit of a buttonizing exercise, you might say. Interestingly here, Cocato doesn't seem to be able to get rid of Celso Prosen here in any way. And we've seen Nicolas Cucato be so strong through so much of the early season here that that to many viewers and to me as well, it seems it could be seeming a little bit like a surprise that he isn't able to take the fight to some of the drivers further up the road here. Has been able to for most of the season.
Yeah, he's had the pace, and the Lamborghini we know, especially in the open setup rounds, is really the quicker package that is available to the drivers, and he's been consistent as well throughout the season. He's got a great team behind him, Apex Tech, bringing plenty of backing with them. It just seems like the season hasn't come to him. Maybe setting focus now on towards next season, using this as sort of sizing everybody up, making sure this is the car he would want to run next season, or he would then consider a change. Through the chicane they will go through the bus stop, and Nicolas Cucato still leading this train, but Sasso Prosen under ever increasing pressure from Pete Plasto behind, and Jorge Pinheiro in the SR Technic 82 Lamborghini just sat behind, not too far adrift, more than happy to just watch along at the moment. He's got the best seats in the house of the cars in front, but it looks like Sasso Prosen, something has to give. Will it be the car in front will drop back a little bit, and that will allow Sasso Prosen to forget about his rearview mirror and really start pushing forward and attacking Nicolas Cucato? Or will it be himself and Sasso Prosen dropping back into the clutches of Pete Plasto just that little bit too much, allowing Pete Plasto to work his way by? Everybody using lots of runoff on the exit. I've got to say, I might have to start using that in some of my racing benches. I didn't realise you could get away with using that much. At the moment, Jorge Pinheiro is He's really been patient, I would say, Hasse. He's just sat enjoying it, washing wide a little bit. You can see the cars just pull away in the distance, but it's not too much of a bother because he's still well within that draft range. He can follow the cars in front for a little bit longer and just wait for either the mistake to come or the pit window to open. You can see now Sasso Prosen well and truly aware he's under attack, going, I think, defensive, but also on the attack as well, trying to work his way through and past Nicolas Cucato. So it's now 4 cars all fighting over the final spot in the top 5.
Yeah, indeed. And we're coming closer to the halfway marker here. We expect the pit window to be, well, in the early stages of the pit window by now, but we'll see the pit stops within the next 10 minutes, and this could be a very good reason to maybe take an early stop. All this battering is going to be, it's going to be hindering a few drivers. Here's Pinheiro, just about gets that done. I'm not quite sure he managed to really keep it in between the lines there, but it's a risky overtake in the end as well. Let's see it from the outside cam here. He was tucked in under the nose of that Ferrari. Goes too wide through the first part of the chicane. That is a risky move, Jack, for what I would say might turn out to be not all that many peanuts at the end of it here, but seems to have very good pace in the Lamborghini. He's going to be pushing on here, trying to get on the inside of Sasso Prosen. Prosen's having none of it, at least not for now. Cucato's going to be hoping for this to go on as well, and knowing Pete Plasto, he might just take any opportunity that presents itself. There he goes, the early pit stop.
Yeah, it seemed like a very well executed move, and it allowed him to keep that position for the moment. Of course, we will see how that will shape up after Pete Plasto returns from the pit lane. But at the moment, a very well executed move with pretty much all pressure put aside. He squeezed his way through the gap and somehow kept the car on the road between the white lines. Potentially a different story, but at the moment Nicolas Cucato still under pressure now from Sasso Prosen, so it did swing the way back of Sasso Prosen, did the pendulum. It meant that Pete Plasto lost a place. Sasso Prosen could focus forward on the Audi just up the road, so it's really now just down to whereabouts the drivers can work their way into the pit lane, and also, more importantly, where they can work their way back out of the pit lane. It's so important. A second, even half a second lost in the pit lane, Hasse, can almost multiply to around about 2 seconds on the road. In the background there, you could see Jorge Pinheiro. He didn't manage to make the move done, but making his intentions known. A little bit of contact between the pair of them. Don't think enough to unsettle either car, but Jorge Pinheiro, desperate to work his way past Sasso Prost. If I was Sasso now, I'd dive into the pit lane. Or if I was Jorge Pinheiro, pardon me, I would dive into the pit lane and save wasting all of this time into the pit lane, get your tyres changed if you need them. I doubt you would in a 45-minute race, but get that fuel topped off. But late on the brakes up the inside, is he going to get it slowed down? Yes, he is. No contact. Jorge Pinheiro still sat there in 7th place. Just please, one of you pull into the pit lane and make it a race of more strategy than on the circuit. We do love racing on the circuit, of course, but with runoff area being very limited here at Watkins Glen, it can be very tricky to race door to door. Great camera angle out on the exit of the final corner, but both drivers remaining out on circuit, and the pendulum swings back the way of Nicolas Cacato. Look how far up the road he is now.
Yeah, and another contact, and that's gonna be it for Jorge Pinheiro. He really should have pitted, shouldn't he, Jack? He's gonna exit from the pit lane. Not in the time he would have otherwise, but got to be a massive disappointment, I'm afraid, there. Pinheiro was going so well. Might have gotten just a little bit greedy there, I'm afraid, Jack. Wanting it too much. Not keeping the head just quite cool enough. That's really played into the hands, though, of Pete Plastow, who's got clean air ahead of him. 6.5 seconds up to Chris Pio. Then Jutze Skoll another 6 seconds up the road. And Plastow, certainly he's going to get past on Pinheiro, but he might just get the better of Sasso Prost as well. Sasso Prost now freed from the battering that was that four-way battle before. Cucato's ahead, still 5th in class. I'm sorry, make that 4th in class. My apologies, 5th overall. And of course, as such, it's not the worst of positions to be in for Nicolas Cucato in the end. I think he's gonna want to just try and do his best to just pick up as many points as he can, and pick him up as consistently as possible. It's worked out for him so far in the season. And in the end, Jack, it's a clever approach as well to try and pick up some points instead of getting above yourself and trying to go on deeper waters than where you can swim and end up getting none at all.
Yeah, it's. I think you have to be very much the thinking driver, especially in this series, because it's a busy job behind the wheel. You've got to make sure that you don't overstress your tyres, you don't sort of lose track of where you are in the order. You can, I know a lot of the drivers finish the race, don't realise they've won it until their crew chief, or they have a look at the result and go, oh, I won that, I completely forgot, I was just driving around hoping that something had happened. You've got to keep an eye on your fuel, keep an eye on the cars around you, decide when you're going to go into the pit lane. When you do it, make sure you know what you're going in for. You don't underfuel, you don't overfuel. You then return to the circuit, allow the tyres to get back up to temperature, don't scrub them too quickly. Returning to the circuit now, Jorge Pinheiro, we'll see whereabouts he works his way in towards the latter stages of the race. There is Pete Plastow sat there in 13th place, already through and past and well and truly ahead of Jorge Pinheiro. Of course, we saw the incident for Pinheiro just a few laps ago. There is Orkun Kolak, 7th overall, 2nd in class, followed by Giambattista Giachetti. Matt Sissler not too far adrift. This is the battle for the final step on the AM-class podium, Hasse.
Yeah, and Cody Steek, interestingly, he did that pit stop early as well. So he might stand to gain in the end. And it's, mind you, Steek is tied on points with Giachetti at the moment. So it's Giachetti for the gains if it stays like it is at the moment. And as such, Cody Steek is going to be wanting Matt Sissler to put every ounce of pressure he can onto Giambattista Giachetti, who's now entering the pit lane. It'll be interesting to see just where he exits. I think from what I can see on the interval, he should have on the gap, I'm afraid, sorry, about 43 seconds, which this is not the longest or the slowest pit lane in the world, Jack. But they do tend to spend just about that amount of time in the pits here. 46 seconds, the quickest pit stop we've seen from Pete Plastow. They range up to about 50 seconds for the slower of them. There he goes.
Returning to the circuit now, and there is Cody Steig, well spotted. We'll see whereabouts everybody works their way in. Chris Pio dropping down the order, Stephen Orwell dropping down the order, Hood Skulsh as well. I've just spotted Matthew Maddox in the background pulling in towards the pit lane. There is Giambattista Giacetti. He will take what is fourth place on the road. Pete Plasto already up to 7th overall, what is 4th in class, waiting for the drivers up the road to pull into the pit lane. There was Chris Pio retaking to the circuit, but at the moment Pete Plasto doing everything he needs to do in front, more importantly, Hasse, of Nicholas Cacato.
Yeah, and that is a big moment in that particular battle there. It seems overtaking here is not so simple, especially not for these drivers being as close as they are. And with the cars being very close as well, of course, it all adds up to a cocktail of close racing. We don't necessarily see all that much in terms of overtakes here. I think we've got the final round of pit stops going on right about now, which is Osman Surt, Gaston Mesaroni, Remco Barlow, Sander Kaffa, Orkun Kolak, and Matt Sissela as well. It's just coming in around now. So just where these different drivers are going to exit as we enter, or as we're about to enter, the final 15 minutes of racing here. The minutes that will indeed decide round 8 here from Watkins Glen. Osman Surt is in prime position, it has to be said, to take the win here. And Remco Barlow, Jack, that's interesting. He's used the pit stop here to jump Gaston Mesaroni.
Yeah, very well done from Remco Barlow. 2 seconds less in the pit lane, and I told you it's so important. The time you spend in the pit lane can really change the complexion of your race. And the one and only BMW we've had out throughout the season, Remco Barlow, now up into 2nd place. We've seen some good results from him. It's great to see him right the way up in 2nd place. Fingers crossed we get to speak to him on the podium in the final, the final minutes of the stream. Still 15 minutes of the race remaining, so a lot can change. The track can evolve yet further. Sander Kaffa still the AM class leader, sat there 6th place in front of Sasso Prosen. Get back to 2nd and 3rd in class of Orkun Kolak and Giambattista Giacetti. But for the moment, everything is swinging the way of Sander Kaffa. It has swung the way and stayed there ever since qualifying. The brilliant lap that he set, and he is consistently lapping throughout this race as well. The most recent lap through was a 1 minute 58.56, so still a little bit away off our pro class leader, but we'll wait for him to get up to speed. Of course, having just returned to the circuit. What lap did he pit on? He pitted on lap 16, so he's only had a couple of laps to get that car hooked up again, and he's had pro traffic to work his way through, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It's just that he's had a busy job once returning to the circuit. Osman Surt crossing the line that time through on his out lap, a 2 minute 11 completed, so too Remco Barlow, and you can see there, much slower was Gaston Mesaroni, still 1.2 seconds away. However, he is getting closer, Hasse. So the final 2 steps on the podium, far from decided. At the start of the lap, the gap was 1.7. At the end of the lap, 1.2.
Yeah, and that's the sort of evolutions and gap that spells trouble, you'd say, when you're driving, and when you see your gap diminish at that sort of rate, it just gets the stress hormones pumping through the body immediately, and you realize that what you're doing at the moment is not going to be enough to keep whoever's behind you behind until the end of the race. And oh, that's a grand save from Kaffa. It's in 2 rounds there, and he's gonna keep a hold of it, but only just. It's restored order to the top of the standings, at least, with the pros now all over the top 6. He's got a bit of a gap still down to Orkun Kolak, though. Kolak's done a good race here to stay in touch and in contention here with Sander Kaffa, who seemed so strong at the opening minutes of the race. Seems to be swinging the way of the racetrack notes Lamborghini at the moment here.
Yep, so Orkun Kolak not doing too badly at the moment. 3.1 seconds adrift of the class leader, Sander Kaffa, Giambattista Giacetti only 3/10 away. Or only, what, I say 3/10 away. I thought it was 3/10 away, but then you see who's behind him. Giambattista Giacetti only 3/10 in front of Matt Sisler. That's the timing screen fooling me once again. You'd have thought after, what, two and a half years of commentary, I'd get used to it. But no, it's consistently catching me out. Orkin Kolak 4.2 seconds clear of Giambattista Giacetti. Matt Sisler trying to work his way on towards the podium. We said that we've had a couple of words with him in the commentary box throughout the season, and he's continuing to work his way forward and trying to make another podium come of his Watkins Glen efforts. At the moment, racetracknotes.app joining us mid-season, really doing what they need to do to make their mark. At the moment, Osman Sert, the first of the RTN Lamborghinis, sat there leading the race and of course leading the Pro class, and second in the AM class, and rather comfortably second in the AM class. 8th overall is the second of the RTN Lamborghinis, so 66 and 666 being the RTN Lambos, and they're doing everything they need to do. And now we're seeing a little bit of a battle further back. Coach Scorch and Jorge Pinheiro both battling away. This is a battle in class, albeit the class you wouldn't expect. The Pro class 7th and 8th in class, 12th and 13th overall. So with what, just over 10 minutes of the race remaining, we've got battles in the AM class, battles in the Pro class, and podiums yet so far yet undecided.
A lot of stuff still happening here at the end of the race, and truly enough to keep us well awake right until the checkered flag here. Matt Sisler still trying to find a way through on Giambattista Giacetti, and the Mercedes. Cody Steek is coming up from behind as well, 4 seconds behind. So if Sisler could really start, for lack of better words, start harassing Giacetti really ahead here, could be the chance for Cody Steek to close that gap here in the final 10 minutes and get that position that could retain him championship lead coming into the final, well, the final 2 rounds of the season here. All going to be rounding off soon. So we're still watching this battle for... Oh, and there's been a change of position here. Sander Kaffer! Oh, it's the AM leader! And he's been leading for so long here, Jack. For the entirety of the race, he was comfortably ahead on his own. I'm afraid he's lost it big time. The chicane claims another casualty, and this time Sander Kaffer. Let's see what happened here, Jack.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be absolutely furious with that. You don't like to see a mistake happen that late on, and it's a bit of a weird one. Very well avoided by Orkin Kolak behind, and then back into the wall in desperation. I'm sure he will be absolutely furious with himself after that, and it's so easy to get caught out and then oversteer, and it's just that overcorrection, Hasse. A bit of a weird one for sure, because it's almost like you could have kept that car turning in, but then you've got Armco either side. The margin for error around here is very minimal, and it's such a shame after brilliant qualifying session. He drove the race, started just owning his own race, and now at the moment that has promoted Orkin Kolak into the lead of the AM class, so that now means 2 RTN Lamborghinis, 2 class leaders. So very well done to the RTN boys so far. We've still got 9 minutes of the race remaining. Orkin Kolak leading by 4 seconds in class. Giambattista Giacetti not too far adrift, followed still by Matt Sisler. So the podium in the AM class well and truly up for grabs, and now we can see Sasso Prost slowly closing up on the tail end of Nicholas Cacato.
Yeah, he's gonna be knocking on the tail of the Audi before long. I think really sending it here, gaining a lot of time. And there is the thing that we've seen before. Sometimes at the end of these races, it dawns upon drivers that they might have slightly underfueled, or might at least be needing to just save that slight bit of fuel. And sometimes it'll render you defenseless against a driver that really turns out flying for the end of the race. Look at Sasso Prost here, so close to Cacato. Has a long look. Isn't quite close enough though. He's taking a more measured approach than what we saw Jorge Pinheiro do earlier, and rightfully so. Wanna end up the same way here. Stephen Orrell is having a bit of a fight with Craig Thompson. No, that's Jorge Pinheiro, by the way, ahead. So Orrell doing a good job of just staying on the tail here of Jorge Pinheiro. We'll go back to the battle here between Nicolas Cucato and Sasso Prosen. I think Prosen gets a very good run comparatively if he can keep it going up through the S's and not scrub the speed off. In these GT3s isn't the easiest thing in the world, but he's very close here, Jack.
Yeah, really, really close now, looking towards the inside, in towards the bus stop later on the brakes. Does he get it slowed down? Yes, he does, bouncing over the curb, but that does now mean Sasso Prosen up in towards 5th place, Nicolas Cucato down into 6th, Pete Plasto quite comfortably sat there in 4th place up the road, but that's now that's Apex Tech Racing Lamborghini up into 5th place. We will have another look now. Riding on board with Sasso Prosen, you can see jumps out of the draft and he's already got that overspeed and lifting out. Very clever driving there from Nicolas Cucato. He knows how long is left of the race and he's very quickly running out of time, so there's no real need to battle that hard. I think he was hoping it would swing back his way. He'd have the draft assistance and he might be able to have an attack and reverse the positions, but it's not quite worked that way. You could hear him lift out just to allow Sasso Prosen through, but it's already slowly started to drop away. Sasso Prosen now, what, 5, 6, maybe even 7 car lengths clear of the car behind, and with 6 minutes of the race remaining, we always seem to run out of time a little bit too early. We do still have battles going on. Matt Sisler all over the tail of Giambattista Giacetti, and this isn't just any old battle for position. This is a battle for what is 2nd and 3rd in class, and Cody Steig is there to pick up the pieces if it goes wrong.
Don't say too much. He's of course a teammate of Matt Sisler, so you can see that Mercedes has taken a knock or two as well here for Cody Steig, so I think that while he has been closing the gap to Giacetti up ahead, he's not really been closing enough to make it on here, I think, at least in the final few minutes of the race. Matt Sisler though gets a great run this time around. Let's see what the Mercedes can do at the end of the straight here, up through the S's. And claws, nails, teeth, whatever he can use there, Giambattista Giachetti's gonna hang on to that position with, yeah, for dear life indeed. They have Martin de Jong in between them as well in the Ford GT, but he is not one and several laps down, I'm afraid. Pinheiro's in the pit as well here. Pinheiro's out. You're gonna wonder what happened to Jorge Pinheiro this time around. Let's see here, Jack.
So through towards the final corner, he nearly got caught out at the start of the race. He did get caught out towards the end of the race, and just over rotating the car on the curb. Not much visual damage on that, but I think it's all about the mechanical damage that was caused underneath. Back to this battle, you can see Matt Sisler very, very close to the tail end of Giambattista Giacetti. You can see how much they're slowing each other down, because this now brings Martin de Jong back into the mix. It won't be a battle for position if he arrives. He is a couple of laps down on those guys, so I'm sure he will just slowly back up. No real reason for him to join that battle. But crossing the line for what will be almost the second to penultimate time this time through was the battle. Giambattista Giacetti still with Matt Sisler all over his tail. To put it into perspective, Hasse, in the 1 hour that we had in the practice session, some of the drivers completed as much racing as we're seeing now. 24 laps a couple of drivers has completed, so 42, 43 minutes of racing under race pace was completed by some of the drivers in practice. So it shows you how committed some of these guys are, and it's really starting to pay off for a couple of the drivers. And it's a nice surprise, I'd say, to see the AM class leader, and not only the AM class leader, the AM class battles being 7th, 8th and 9th respectively.
Absolutely so. Oh, a bit of a look here from Sicily. He wants it here, and Giacetti must be getting stressed here. The gap is slowly diminishing away. Remco Barlow, by the way, look at this here. He's got contact now from Gaston Maceroni at the final moments of the race. Barlow there had a very short pit stop. He might be needing to fuel save at the final moments here, and that might just open the door for Maceroni. We'll be seeing if we can just keep our eyes on both of these battles, because frankly, quite interesting what's going on here. Osman Sert, 3.5 seconds up the road. That's going to be a comfortable cushion. You can just play it relatively safe, especially if they start battling down here. Maceroni is flying at the moment. Let's see if the Audi can pull itself up in the slipstream of the massive BMW there. Already seems to be doing a pretty decent job of it. He's trying to make his way up the inside there. Oh, and takes a bit of a bounce. Keeps it all going just about. Slide there at the end from Maceroni, and that's gonna cost him a bit of time. Now it's Matt Sisseler and Giachetti at the very same piece of track. And Cody Steek now got the slipstream of Martin DeYoung to aid him in his progress. He's getting closer and closer as well. The two teammates, would you think that Sisseler would let Cody Steek through for a late attempt here, or is it going to be for Matt Sisseler to just take the position, and if it works out, then his teammates gets a shot as well? Of course, Martin DeYoung sort of in the way as well. So he has to either go the problem. Oh no!
Wow. Very well held from Cody's side. How? I don't know, Hasse. I've lost for words as well.
How on earth did he not touch the wall there? I have no clue, but it seems that Mercedes is carrying no more or less damage than it was before. I'm not quite sure. It might have been a graze out there at the wall, but it's light contact regardless. And that was a huge moment for Cody Steek. Oh, and that's Martin DeYoung.
Yeah, Martin DeYoung very, very hard into the wall on the exit of the penultimate corner. Such a shame. On to the final lap of the race. You can see the white flag being shown to the drivers now. So this is the final lap. I heard on the lap prior, Osman Sert was lifting and coasting in towards the heavy braking zones. You can see he has massively
the gap's
dropped
down
that lead gap down.
1.4 seconds.
Could be Remco Barlow still pushing and Osman Sert just lifting and coasting. So struggling on fuel. Clearly, Osman Sert towards the latter stages of the race. 1.3 seconds clear now, but on the final lap, I don't think it will really affect the race too much. What it is doing, inadvertently, I think is affecting Gaston Maceroni, because Remco Barlow will see the leader up the road and thinking, oh, I could have him here, and he's really starting to push forward, leaving Gaston Maceroni behind and remaining around about 1.3 seconds now. But heading through and in towards the final couple of corners are our leaders, and the battle for the final couple of spots on the Antas podium in towards the final sector already. Look how close these guys are getting, Hasse. Only a couple of corners remaining. I don't think we'll see a positional change, but it's great to see Remco Barlow right the way up there in second place and fighting for it.
Yeah, I think Sert's got it covered, and he's now back up to his normal pace. He was just using his gap to save the fuel he needed to push for the final few corners. He's taking another win here at Watkins Glen, ahead of Remco Barlow. And Gaston Maceroni there gets third in the end.
Yeah, so good stuff. Who's that in the wall in the background? I think that's Cody Steig. Cody Steig has lost out very late on, struggling with rear end grip we saw just a few laps ago, and that then threw him into the wall on the final lap of the race, heading through the final couple of corners. Orkun Kolak will win the class just about from Giambattista Giachetti and Matt Sisseler, who fought their way to the line. Hoge Skulch will inherit 10th place overall. Cody Steig in a very second-hand looking car now. It looks like he managed to get away with it, hitting tyres more than anything, but there's a couple of panels which are visually showing the damage. Cody Steig crossing the line, 11th overall, 4th in class. Stephen Orr will round out your top 5 AM class winners, 12th overall. And Craig Thompson, a race of what could have been. I think he had the potential all night. We saw lots of battling throughout the race, and I think he just couldn't quite get that car hooked up, but 13th overall, very good stuff from Craig Thompson. working their way through the final couple of corners now will be our final few finishers. I think Nick Mclaughlin and Matthew Forrest have taken to the circuit to take the checkered flag. Great to see. And Chris Pio, the final of our race-long competitors to take the checkered flag. 14th overall and 7th in class.
As we're just still, yeah, there we are. Osman Sert, overall win, class win, of course, as well for the Poro driver. Beautiful drive. Closer, maybe, than we would have liked in the end, but looked to me as he was in full control. Remco Barlow, second, ahead of Gaston Maceroni. Then Pete Plasto, Cesar Prosen, and Nicolas Cucazzo there. Sixth place for him in the end. So points gained on Chris Boland, but not as much as it could have been for Cucazzo there. Orkan Kolak wins an AM ahead of Battista Giachetti and Matt Cesar. Jotzi Skulic gets 7th in Pro, 10th overall there, ahead of Cody Steek, Stephen Orrell, Craig Thompson, and Chris Pio, with Matthew Maddox, Jorge Pinheiro, Martin de Jong, and Sander Kaffa in the following places. And just to round off the race results, Nick Mclaughlin, Matthew Forrest, Chris Roberts, Nuno Vinacre, and Aiden Kan Atterberg, all of which were say relatively early casualties of this race, which proved, Jack, to be attritional in a way that I wasn't quite expecting it to. The opening lap seems to be okay, but from there on, it all went downhill for quite a number of the drivers here.
Yeah, again, a race of what could have been. A lot of the drivers showed great potential throughout both practice, qualifying, and then the race, and it's just the small mistakes, I think, that caught a lot of the drivers out. It was such a shame to lose Sander Kaffa mid-race. Nick Mclaughlin, again, class leaders and on for good championship points, just lost out at really key parts of the race. It was such a shame to see it. But Remco Barlow, he's got to be the standout driver for me today, the one and only BMW we had out on circuit, and drove the race very, very well indeed, and just controlled it as soon as he was under pressure. Very clever driving, and I think to the point we're going to have to bring him in for an interview. So Remco Barlow, welcome to the commentary box. And
Evening.
It seemed like that BMW today, it just had something else, but with you behind the wheel, plenty of battling, a little bit of luck, I'm sure, but a clever strategy as well, whether you knew it at the time or not. It allowed you to cross the line, second place.
Yes, first of all, congratulations to Osman Sert. He had an amazing pace. Yeah, a little bit of luck, strategy, and consistency that may be P2 today.
Yeah, it really worked for you. It showed off the BMW more than we usually see it. Of course, the sole BMW, it's great to see that it can fight up there in the mix and get the podium. So, of course, good championship points. Is it something you think about with only, 2 rounds of the championship remaining? Good points now could really set you up. Is that something you think about?
Yes, definitely. I want to end up in the top 3 at the end of the season, so...
Well, the points tonight will, of course, massively help a good haul of points, and it has allowed you to work your way through the championship order. And we're leaving, of course, Watkins, Glen in towards the final 2 rounds of the season. And we'll just pull up the schedule on my side. So we go to Road America next and Sebring. So we stay stateside for the final 2 rounds. Road America, talk to me. Is it a circuit you like, a circuit you hate?
It's one I love. It's one of my favorite tracks. Just like Watkins, Glen, and Sebring is also one of my favorite tracks. So yeah, I was pretty happy with these last rounds. So let them come.
Well, it's swung back your way well and truly. It's great to hear from you, Remco, and of course, congratulations once again on second place. Before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to thank or shout out?
I would like to thank everyone of Sunday GT Masters. Of course, you two guys, the commentators, and I would like to say thank you to my team WPR Racing and Plug It Like It.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Remco. It's great to hear from you, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time at Road America. And once again, another congratulations for myself and Hasse on second place this evening.
Thank you. Have a great evening, guys.
Okay, Barlow there. And over to you, Hasse, for another interview.
Absolutely so, and we've got a double header this time around. It's both Usman Sert and Orkan Kolak joining me in the booth for a team interview and a double winners interview as well. Gentlemen, welcome to the booth, and what a race for both of you. And I got a question that you just take turns answering, because it actually applies to both of you in equal sense. Because the race win, for both of your sakes, came from sort of playing the patient game and sitting there when others made their mistakes. Was that sort of the plan coming into this one for both of you?
Yep. Hi, hi, Jack. So I will speak on behalf of both of us, as Osman, he doesn't like to speak English, though he understands. And yeah, good point. Like Osman, we knew he's quite fast and he could take the pole and take it from the pole. But Nick did an outstanding lap, and like by a very small margin, he was ahead of Osman. But then I think he made a mistake, as Osman told me, though I haven't seen. So he had to be patient and wait for the race to come to him. And it was similar for me as well. Like. Before the race at the practice, I was telling the guys that like if I do like a perfect lap, I would do a 44.5, and that's what I did in the qualifying, and it put me in the second place for the amateurs, and I had to wait for Sander to make a mistake, or I was going to settle for it. Luckily, both Nick and Sander made a mistake for us, luckily, but unlucky for them.
And coming into the final 2 rounds of the championship, it must give you great belief that you can get on a few great results and round off the season in a really good way here.
Yeah, like, I mean, maybe it applies to everyone, but unless we make a stupid mistake or just not be unlucky with other people's mistakes, we usually finish very close to the top. And Watkins Glen is like, I think, the best track for Osman and also for me as well. Road America, I don't feel comfortable, and I think the last races at Sebring also I don't feel very comfortable, but Osman's very good at those as well, so hopefully we'll be at top.
Well, indeed. Well, before we let you off to go and celebrate in style, of course, a big congratulations from here. And is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks or a shout out to while you're alive on the air here?
Yep, so as always, thanks to the boys at the factory, the team. So also I want to thank Osman as well, because training with him makes me much faster as well. I learned a lot from him, but I'm going to ask this question to Osman as well in Turkish, if you allow me. Osman, teşekkür etmek istediğin birileri var mı?
Sen benim yerine herkes teşekkür ettin zaten. Gerek yok bence.
Okay, he shares my feelings, so he thanks the team as well, and as always, thanks to you guys and thanks to the organizers as well.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us here post-race. Congratulations to both of you on brilliant race victories in both of the classes here tonight, and best of wishes until the next one, where I of course hope to get the chance to talk to you again here in the comms booth.
Thanks guys, cheers, bye.
So that was Orkan Kolak and Osman Sert there as well. We're gonna grab a final driver in here, and it's gonna be Matt Sisseler indeed. It was up there in the AM class battle for, and didn't get a podium place in the end with third. And a very good battle in the end with Giambattista Chiacchetti. And I gotta ask you, Matt, was there any sort of team play coming into it that you could, first of all, get in front, of course, and take some points from Giambattista, but also maybe just to harass him a little bit and give Cody the chance to get into it as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was kind of my thought process. You know, it was just try to stay with him, force an error, and in, you know, final 2 laps, I was close enough to probably send it a couple times, and I was trying to set him up the last into the heel of the boot with like 3 corners to go, and I clipped the grass on the exit, and that was that. But yeah, I was trying to force an error or get Cody up there. Cody was closing. I was harassing him. It was working, but we just he couldn't quite get up there. But yeah, I mean, all the credit to Gianchetti. He I harassed him for a good 60% of the race, and he didn't let me get by him.
And that actually leads me very well onto the next question, Matt, because it seemed to me tonight that overtaking was actually surprisingly difficult. At least for a lot of the field here, given the pace differences aren't all that great. Was that the experience you had out there on track as well?
Yeah, a little bit. I felt like I was trying to set him up for into the bus stop, and then I had like 3 or 4 places where I felt I could get him. I was really good on exit of the last corner, but I just couldn't get I couldn't get enough to send it up the inside into turn 1, which is where I was trying to get there, and and it was difficult to do. I was close a few like I said, I was close enough a few times, but just didn't really ever have enough confidence that I could send it in there without him going to make the corner and me taking him out. I wouldn't want to do that. So yeah, it was kind of difficult to set up passes, at least from trying to go past him.
Well, thanks, Matt, for taking the time to have a bit of a talk here post-race. Congratulations on a strong race result in the end as well. And I hope you're ready for the 2 final rounds here come Road America and Sebring as well. Before I let you off the hook, is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks or a shout-out to?
Yes, absolutely. Everybody at Apex Tech Racing and all of our sponsors, Base Performance Simulators, Pro Sim Rig, our website that just launched, apextechracing.supply, Meridian, TPI, HD Anywhere, and Precision, Sim Engineering, and again back to my team, because Cody helped me a little bit getting the car set up how I needed it, and without him, I don't think I would have had as good a result. So. Just thanks to them, and also again, thanks guys for broadcasting. You guys make it sound like a true broadcast, and it's always fun to chat with you guys.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Matt. It's always a pleasure to have you in, and I hope for the best of you for the final few rounds here as well, and hope for the chance for another chat as well. So that was Matt Sisseler, and that concludes the round of interviews for tonight. And as such, that concludes the broadcast for tonight as well. I'll just fling up the schedule as well, because I was actually trying to memorize just when the next round is, and I've forgotten. It's the 12th of June, of course, and 2 weeks from now, Road America, and then in a month from now, on the 26th of June, we've got the season finale as well. So make sure you stay with us for those 2 and check out the another exciting end to a season that seems to be sort of the way it swings every single season here with the Sunday GT Masters in the end. Thanks to Grip Engineering and to SIMRACER Coin as well for making it all possible. My name is Hasse Rømer. I've been with the brilliant Jack Werrell tonight. It's been our absolute pleasure having you all along. Thank you so much for tuning in here on Virtual Racing Compound, and until next time, take care, have fun, and bye-bye.